All right, we're going to get started in just a second, so please grab some pizza, finish the quiz, and take a seat, so that, because then we'll close the doors. And I think we had 9 startups sign up to pitch. We'll probably won't be able to get to any more than the ones that signed up. But if you did, please line up over next to Matt over there so that we can get everybody who's going to pitch going kind of rapid fire. Matt, will you handle the mic? right, so while let's go ahead and, while the students are finishing up the quiz, I know we have some guests here, so let's flip through some of the other slides. First, let me just say, welcome everybody. I know we got a few extra guests here tonight, but I want to remind everybody that the primary purpose of here tonight is the Longhorn Startup class. So we've got our students seated here in the middle, and we're going to be really looking to them first for questions and things like that as we get into things with Bill. But we also have some of our other founders and investors from Capital Factory here, so it's great to see so many of you here all as well. We are going to be doing our usual open pitch pizza, and we've had, like I said, I think about 9 people sign up before class, so we'll go through those pretty rapid fire. But in the future, for signing up for that, it's pitch.longhornstartup.com. And so you get to give a 2-minute pitch. You tell us if it's a pitch targeted at investors or customers. And then we give you some quick feedback, and you get a chance to practice, and you get some feedback, and then you get all these other people to hear about it. And then somebody wins $100 at the end. So it's a pretty good deal. So that's what we're going to kick off with. We'll do that for 30 minutes. We may have to cut it off if we aren't able to get them through them too fast, because we want to make sure we get to our time with Bill. And then Bill and I will jump on stage, and we'll do a little fireside chat with Bill Gurley, and there'll be time for all of you to ask questions as well too. So great. I guess that's it for slides. So we'll talk more about the class in a minute. Question?
Can you go back to the code real quick for the quiz?
Back to the code for the quiz.
All right, thank you.
All right. Awesome. All right. So now let's jump into the pitches. Again, let's try to keep these moving pretty rapid fire. Many of you have done it before. At least I know the first few have. So you'll have some examples to see before you get up here. And Matt will be handling the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Raghav Kalyandaraman, freshman at UT Austin. Today I'm going to be doing a customer pitch for a new app that I've come up with. Imagine walking into the dining hall at UT Austin as a freshman for the first time in your life. Now, if you were me, I was overwhelmed with all the options that there were. There's so many things I can get, so many things I can eat, and it's all unlimited. Now, I'm sure many of you all are aware of the notion of the freshman 15. How many of you guys know about this already? Quite a lot of you. Obviously, it's the thing where freshmen generally gain weight because of how much they're eating at the dining halls, how many things are going on through their freshman year, and how busy they are. So they find it harder to keep track of their health goals. Now imagine there was an app that can do this for you. Because as a freshman, I'm overwhelmed with the number of things I already have to do, but I do care about my health. I do care about eating the right things. This app will make sure you are eating the right things because it'll give you an easy-to-use GUI, graphic user interface, in order to make sure you are able to see what's available on the dining hall menu, and also it will pre-create menus and plans for you based on your health goals, whether that be cutting, bulking, or maintaining your current body weight. Now, of course, many of you guys will be interested in the other features and the personalization as well because of how many things that it has to offer in the sense of long-term planning. These are all things just to make it easier on you as you walk into the dining hall, so you don't have to make decisions. It makes the decisions for you. All you have to do, walk in there, get exactly what you need, and you'll be already following the health goals that you want. Thank you.
Awesome, man. We do one big clap like this. In fact, you're just going to have to follow my lead. All right. So I'm gonna give quick feedback on this one, and in the future, feel free to just grab the mic out of my hand anytime if you feel inspired. But you pitched a number of times, which is great. I really encourage that because that's how you get good at it, is practicing. The biggest thing that would really help make your thing better next, because everybody gets weight loss and the basic idea of things like that, but would be is some compelling thing to me that people really want this. I've talked to so many people, or I've done so many, some sign of that this is actually going to be a big thing and lots of people are going to really want it. So that for me is the next thing that would really make it better. Good job.
Thank
you. So first of all, the fact that I could have guessed you pitched many times just because of how well you did it, actually. So I'd commend you on that. Um, Over the years, I have found that these types of weight loss apps, they might have high start, but they have massive decay. Like people don't stick with them, and so you end up with high churn. It makes it tough to build an enduring business.
Yeah. So from a business model perspective, awesome. Thanks. Good job.
Thank you.
We want to keep things moving fast.
All right.
Come on up.
All right, hi everyone, my name is Amber Williams and I'm doing a customer pitch. And for this pitch, I need you to all pretend you are parents that live in a cul-de-sac. Okay, you got it? Okay, channel that parent vibe. All right, it is a beautiful sunny afternoon. The kids are home from school and the cul-de-sac that they live on is empty. No kids are outside. Now, back in my day, when I was a kid, I would be outside on a bike or smelling the grass or drawing with chalk. But today, when 4 out of 5 kids own a device, many of them choose to spend their time on their screens indoors. Now, we know that technology can be helpful for kids, but too much of it can harm their social connectivity skills. And we know this is a problem because 70% of parents in the US think that their kids spend too much time on their screens. So what can we do about this problem? Well, we can't eradicate iPads, but we can compete with them. So introducing Cul-de-sac Kids. We are an event planning service that brings interactive events to your local neighborhood designed to get kids out of their house and interacting with their other fellow children. So we do this by planning the events and by recruiting really fun, enthusiastic young adults to help facilitate these activities. So I want you to now picture that cul-de-sac again, but this time filled with kids out on the streets, playing with each other and enjoying the true device-free fun that they deserve. If this is the future that you want for your kids, please connect with me and I'd be happy to arrange a cul-de-sac kids event. Thank you.
Want me to go first? Go for it. Also, a fabulous presenter, so congrats. It's, I wouldn't expect people this young to have such confidence in their presenting style. Fantastic. I don't know, like, I mean, it's 2 minutes, but I don't know how you'll make money or how you'll charge or how to be implemented and all those things, which are highly relevant. In this.
Those are great questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the business model questions are good ones. I think, is this something that's like going to be for it to really scale, it would almost maybe need to be something that like franchised out, that like, or something like that. But it makes me think of like clowns and birthday parties and like princesses and superheroes, right? And also latching on to an event like a birthday, or like there are events that cause people to do stuff. Like this could be like the next wave in birthday party things is the cul-de-sac party, right? Or the Halloween party or the whatever. So yeah, I could totally see people being really into that and doing it and just, how do you make it some kind of viral, cool experience that people want to go do? But the business model questions of like, how big can that be? You'd have to really get it to be something that, that was like a franchise or something that people were doing or something to get it to really scale.
Good thoughts.
Great job.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Colin Angel and this will be an investor pitch for a startup I've been working with for the past
Speak
few
up a little bit
months.
more, even though you got the mic, or hold the mic closer.
Sure. So imagine the workflow of a modern insurance agent. You spend hours manually entering customer records into clunky insurance portals just to generate policies that might not lead to a sale. You're probably wondering if your time could be spent more valuably. Meet Gaia. Gaia is a Chrome browser extension that utilizes AI to intelligently copy and paste customer records into insurance portals instantly. And our customers love these features, so much so they become our first investors. We have several companies paying for our SaaS product and many more currently awaiting access on a wait list. Sure, I lost my train of thought here, but
You're doing great.
we are seeking a seed investment to bolster our dev team, to increase the stability of our product for our wider release, where we expect explosive customer growth. In and our team is led by technical co-founders with business expertise honed at Stanford GSB and previous experience with startups, which will allow us to take this business to the next level. So I'm asking you to join us in improving the insurance landscape for the better. Thank you.
Awesome. Dude, that was a great job. Really good. I really liked that your explanation of like the problem and what it was, and like I can imagine lots of it makes me think of like there are a lot of sales tools that are like little Chrome advisors like that for real estate agents and for other people, and that have been pretty successful and built real businesses around them. When you talked about like having paying customers and like people, if you had numbers, like we have this many paying customers or this many like just numbers make everything sound more real and better and more impressive. And then I liked how your kind of team credibility stuff at the end. So really great job.
What kind of insurance is it?
Home and auto insurance.
Okay. Believe it or not, I've actually had a founder that I've worked with spend a ton of time in this. I think it's a real opportunity, like flat out, real opportunity. We've seen AI automation in the legal space, and I think this is a category where it's unquestionably going to happen. Or is the live customers real, or is that part of a pitch?
Real customers, yeah.
It's already up. That's cool. I think it'll work.
Awesome. Yeah. And by the way, good point of like you can get up and pitch, and like it's okay to like fill in the blanks with a little bullshit right now. Like we're just practicing your pitch. So sometimes my people say like, and then that's why he asked like, would you really have customers? And it's awesome that you do. But if you didn't, that would have been okay as long as you told the truth. So awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey guys, my name's Rishi, and this is going to be sort of a practice elevator pitch for, I guess, my startup. So I'd like to start this off with a personal anecdote. When I buy my shoes, I normally buy them at a strip mall in Dallas, but since I needed a new pair here, I decided to buy them online. After flipping through, multiple online retail sites, Nike, Amazon, and applying all my filters and browsing through the reviews, I finally found a pair after about 2 hours of searching. You can imagine, for something as simple as men's black Nike sneakers, there are thousands of results online, and a couple of them will be like the perfect match for your criteria, but these online retail sites don't make it easy to find that. Okay, well, what about in-person shopping? When I go into a Nike store, my first thought is to talk to an employee. Hey, you want Nike sneakers? Here, let me pull out a few from the back. With the help of someone who sort of implicitly understands what I need, my choices start to converge much faster. And even though I might have spent 10 minutes driving to the store, I end up leaving much faster and much more satisfied. So where do the dots connect? I think that current online fashion retail sites are sort of like the overcrowded Yahoo portals in the 90s, where you have this useless homepage and a search bar that doesn't really work. Instead, I propose a site where you're only interacting with an AI agent, a chatbot, who throughout the course of a conversation is trying to recommend you the product that you're looking for as fast as possible. The idea here is that it incrementally fine-tunes the products it's recommending you as you start going through the conversation and liking what it recommends and disliking them. So that's sort of the gist of it. Right now we're in this sort of early validation stage, and my ask is simple. I'd like to talk to people about this. So if you're interested in this idea, or if you have any feedback on it, or if you know anyone who works in the online fashion / e-commerce space, please let me know and I'll love to meet them. Thank you.
Awesome. Great job. I think there's a company, as far as people you need to meet, Nick Spiller, who is around here somewhere, I think, and he'll raise his hand maybe, way in the back. I can't remember their name right now, but they just joined Capital Factory this month that specifically is all about, or just in the past month or two, targeting high-value transactions in e-commerce and kind of assisting them through to conversion. So that sounds right up your alley and like somebody you should meet. I can't remember the right name.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is happening, like it's happening all over. So I think the hard part for you will be to find the right market entry point so that you get viral growth or viral pickup, because the incumbents are wide awake on AI right now, and they're going to all start doing it. Now, it turns out that the way the AI models work, they don't have memory for an interaction, so you'll have to tune your models to the customer input, which is way more work than just using OpenAI as an LLM.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
We got 4 more. These are great. Great job.
Hello, my name's Aditya Panda. Quick question, how many of you guys have ever watched an anime before or know what an anime is? It seems like most of you, but just to explain, anime or animated shows created in Japan that have become somewhat of a global phenomenon. And if you've ever watched an anime, you might have run into the situation where you watch the first season of the show and the second season hasn't come out yet, and you want to know what happens next. So what you might discover is that it's actually based off something called a manga, which is essentially a comic. But the comic doesn't have the voice acting, it doesn't have the animation, it doesn't have the music and sound effects. So you're kind of left in this dilemma. Should you watch the anime and wait for the next season or read the comic? So me personally, I couldn't deal with this dilemma. So I made YouTube videos where I would voice act the characters, animate the panels, add music and sound effects, and hundreds of thousands of people came to watch this. Creating an entirely new experience. But the problem was that it was extremely time consuming. I mean, a single page of manga could take hours upon hours to complete. But then I started research in computer vision, and I also worked at a company in which we made software for video editors. And what I realized is by applying the knowledge that I gained, I could build some simple tools to drastically reduce the time that it would take to make these animated panels. So what we're building is an AI-powered studio for comic creators to create more realized versions of their stories and a platform for readers to consume these stories. Thank you.
Super cool.
I'll go first. So I could certainly see that being successful, and I could certainly see that there's value add. I think the key question will be whether the people that use the tool set are going to be willing to pay enough money for you to build a sustainable company. Providing tools to Hollywood has been a bit of a difficult. There aren't a lot of companies that have succeeded there, and that's obviously a bigger market than the anime market.
Yeah, totally. Although I don't know a lot about it, but I have a 13-year-old that was really into it for a couple of years, and it seemed like it was one of those like threads you pull, and there's like, wow, I mean, it was way bigger than I thought it was. Like it was really big. So that's really interesting, and I think this is totally the future of content creation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I have one more thought. I mean, this would be higher risk, but maybe higher reward. If you give away the tool and force them to publish through your portal.
That was my plan.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a lot higher risk, but if it works, it's probably more defensive than selling the tool set.
Like the market for the creators is way smaller than the amount of readers that I could potentially reach.
Right.
So 3 really good intros for you all. Again, I'm going to point at Nick right now, just out of laziness. But Chen from Aqua for Motion. Aqua for Motion is a really cool company in town. Do you know them? They're doing like kind of like automatically generating animated characters from people just kind of acting out and talking stuff, right? Or from generative AI, from just typing it out. And then another one's Wonder Dynamics. That's another similar company in that space, and so we're involved in both of them. And then the person, oh shoot, who is the person I wanted you to meet? All right, well, I'm going to think of another person that I'll add on later, but good job.
One other thing, listen to like the Mr. Beast interview with with Rogan, because you could theoretically just push through YouTube and monetize a lot quicker that way.
Yeah. The person was actually one of our investors. Was one of the founders of Funimation, which is one of the main anime things, and we know him too. So like if you get to a point where it's like he's a big investor, he writes big checks. But like when you get to like he could someone that could look at it could help. So all right, let's keep going. Great job.
Hello everyone, my name is Josh and this is an investor pitch. So data-driven organizations create significantly more value to their bottom line. Despite this, scaling startups rarely invest in data as a product and as an asset. Why? Imagine this. Imagine you are the CEO of a rapidly scaling AI startup or tech startup. Would you justify a $2 million wage expense to stand up a data team if it didn't directly impact next quarter's top line revenue growth? No, because oftentimes deploying and finding top tier data talent and implementing it into a business doesn't always make sense. Just not only on a cost perspective, but on the fact that you get a delayed return on investment. So Fraction X was born. At Fraction X, we connect the new age of data professionals in a hybrid work environment to those opportunities. It's a two-sided platform that on one side, companies are now enabled and are able to hire a full-scale AI fractional team of workers to come into a business and solve a certain problem. Fraction X leverages the gig efficiencies of Uber and does it in a way that applies to the knowledge workforce. Thank you.
Great job. Obviously, you practiced that pitch, and like we're prepared. And I think you like hit all the buzzwords. Like those are all things that lots of people are going to be interested in. At some level, I'm like, every other consulting company is going to be trying to do AI stuff too. So I'm not sure why it's going to be really different. Although it still might not be a bad marketing plan to differentiate yourself by saying our thing is that we really focus on AI, and that that's what we're gonna do, and that might be a way to charge a premium for it.
Yeah, my only feedback would be that it's probably got a lot higher chance of success if you pick a cornerstone market that you start in. You may, if you do a little research, Craft Ventures just launched a SaaS data tool that's targeted only at SaaS companies, because then the data set's smaller, the expertise of your workers are all focused, and you'll be able to close and lock in people a lot quicker than trying to be broadly generic.
Okay. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Great job. All right. Two more, and we are right on time.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Manav. I have a quick question before we get started. How many times today have you heard the word AI? Just raise up a hand. Yeah? Boom, there we go. That's a good number. So I think it's pretty clear to say AI is like taken over our world. I mean, one of my friends went to a Burning Man event in San Marcos last week that had an AI-themed speaking component to it, right? It's pervaded every aspect of our life. And especially with companies slated by 2026 to have 80% of all enterprises working with AI by then, I think it's pretty important to understand that in the age of AI, the real difference maker is going to be how exactly you as a company and as an individual use AI to benefit yourself, benefit your business, and benefit your life. And what we do at Rendition is we empower you to use the leading AI systems in a way that gives you the outputs that you want to have. For the enterprise, we come in and build you standard operating procedures that 6x your volume for stuff like LinkedIn outreach, cold email, paid advertisements, and all types of other repetitive tasks that you can use an AI to do just as well as a human with less time and more output. And for the consumer, education products that allow them to understand the best possible ways to be using AI from the bottom all the way to the top, whether that's working with the non-technical aspect of prompt engineering, all the way to fine-tuning an API and selecting the right types of data. So what we're going to be doing is building a better world for the consumer of AI so that they can understand how exactly to use it in this new age, how to benefit themselves, how to build their life, and help themselves make more growth and in their age of AI. And that's how we do it. Thanks so much, guys.
Great job. You've been practicing every week, so and you've obviously, it shows that you've practiced it a bunch of times. It's gotten more focused on the we're gonna help you figure out AI. Like, it's much clearer to me. You lost me when you went to the consumer stuff. I was like totally with you up to the this is gonna be we're gonna take businesses and show them how to use it to do things. Then it was and if you're a consumer, and I'm like, whoa, totally different customer. I got a little lost at that point, but I was really with you all the way up to there.
So I'm old enough to have lived through a whole bunch of these different disruption cycles, and whether it was websites or client server before that or mobile apps, there's always been a window, and I'll really hone in on this notion of window, where a lot of service firms are allowed to pop up and add value. It fades over time. And so my only advice, well, I have two pieces of advice. One, like I said on the last presentation, I think if you focus on a vertical, on a customer, on an industry, you're going to get up to speed faster, you're going to grow faster. But I would recommend, if you want to do this as a business, that you bootstrap and not take capital, because you'll get customers early and you don't need it. You can, and I would think about exit within 3 or 4 years. I wouldn't expect to build a standalone business over the long run.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Do we have, what, is this the last one? Okay. So thank you, guys. This was an awesome turnout, and we have one more to go.
Hey, what's up, everyone? So this is the investor pitch. Let's start with a good story. So your name is Joe, and your boss, he wants to give you all the important customer insights so that you can sell his product and make more money. So naturally, you load up your CRM and bam, all this data, all the tabs, it overwhelms you, and you actually are less efficient and you sell less somehow with more data. Isn't that interesting? Here's my solution to that. An AI-based CRM, so we're hitting all the buzzwords there, which is good. And really, this is all about using an LLM to allow non-tech savvy people to benefit from this large amount of data that is being collected on customers. So you can build reports. You can get insights just by texting this robot and really sell more stuff and make more money. This is going to drastically increase efficiency and more money in your pocket. Current CRMs are too specific to their industry or too vague, like Salesforce. This would be a modular LLM CRM that allows anybody to get rich data insights from their customers. In conclusion, this is going to be a CRM that you can talk to get those big data insights without overwhelming your non-tech employees. Thank you.
All right. So obviously you practiced that, and that part's good. And you've pitched before. Speaking slow is generally good. That was a little too slow. It was like it just kind of became monotonous, and so like you lost your inflection. You kind of lost the excitement and like the energy of it. So I would try to work that part back into it, and it like there was like nothing you said I disagreed with, but it was just so high level that it was hard to get excited about it. It was like it was kind of like CRMs suck, which everybody knows. It's easy to say CRMs suck or that there's lots of problems with CRMs, and it was like, and we fix all these problems with CRMs. And it's like, okay, well, that sounds great, but I don't believe, it's hard for me to believe that or make that credible.
So I actually love this idea, but with some caveats. So as I said earlier, like today's LLMs aren't set up to actually remember. If you go into Pi or Claude or ChatGPT, they don't remember things, and it's because they've been trained on this data and they respond to prompts. But you'd have to like just keep putting everything you learn into a prompt. So you'd have to go build a model that like retunes overnight or whatever to be able to accomplish what you're talking about. The second thing is, if you can do that and figure that out, I love the idea of a CRM that's AI from the beginning and only AI. I think AI is a really interesting user interface disruption, and I think it could be cool. I would start with, you know how all these YC companies get started by selling to other YC companies? If you're starting with something like that, it'd be great to start with companies that are just starting so you don't have to transfer the data out of the other one. Anyway, good luck. I think it might work.
And when you say using AI, do you mean also like conversational? The AI is the interface?
We can talk about it up here, but
yeah.
I think the LLMs are remarkably interesting as a replacement to data entry.
Yeah.
Like those
As a new
CRMs
user interface.
Yeah, those CRMs also have massive problems. None of the sales team wants to actually fill it out.
Right.
And they hire separate people to pump the data in. Yes, both directions.
Awesome. There's a good endorsement. Thank you very much. Good job. You can leave the mic on though, share.
All right.
Hold on just one second.
Yep.
All right. Let's just give a big round of applause to everybody that pitched. It takes, as you all know, it takes a lot of guts to get up in front of everybody, in front of everyone, and pitch your idea, or to talk at all. And for some people, it comes easier than others. I have a lot of practice. Practice definitely makes it a lot easier. It was definitely not something that was easy for me, or isn't for most people. So, and I think, as Bill already said, and I think most people see when they come here. You guys are pretty impressive, actually. You give we can debate the ideas of the idea, the business model, the other stuff, but like you guys get up and you give pretty damn good pitches. You do a good job. So those were all really good. So thank you. All right. So I think let's pop through these and jump right up to introducing Bill. So I'm super excited to have Bill Gurley here with us today. I'm going to invite him up to join me up on stage here in just a second. We are fortunate that we get just some great people to come in and join us here. And part of it is, the main point of it is getting you the chance to talk to people directly, right, and ask your own questions and really have a more intimate discussion with them. And so again, I do want to just emphasize that the point of this is for our Longhorn Startup class, and we've got the students generally seated here in the middle. And it doesn't mean nobody else can ask any questions, but we are going to lean towards leaning towards the students' questions first as we go through this. Now, Bill, many of you probably already know of him because, he's when they make a list of all the best VCs in the world, he's always on it. He's invested in lots of companies that many of you use, like Uber and OpenTable and Grubhub and Zillow, and lots of other ones. And there was even a pretty fun TV show recently, Super Pumped, which where he got played as part of that show. So many of you may have seen that too. But we get to see him because although his undergrad was at the University of Florida, he did his MBA here at UT Austin. Really, just as I was, just a few years before I got here. And through that, we have that connection here to Austin. And I guess we'll hear a little bit more about why he's spending more time here now, or why we see him here too. But we're really glad to have him here. And Bill, let's give him a big round of applause and welcome him up to the stage. You can lay down.
I want one of those single claps.
All right, we'll give you a big single clap too. Everybody ready? You can, yeah. All right, ready? One big single clap.
All right.
All right, there we go.
Left down.
You got your single clap. All right, so we're going to start it off where I'm going to ask some of the questions to start for a little bit, and then we're going to open it up to the students as well. You up here. All right, so just to put it in perspective, you were here in the kind of early to mid '90s for your MBA. Is that right?
93.
Yeah. So what was Austin like then versus what it's like now?
It's you'd think that'd be an easy question to answer, but my frame of reference is so different now than when I was, 27 or whatever. Like I don't even know that I was ingesting things that way. I mean, 6th Street was still cool and Rainey didn't exist. So there's one.
Were you aware of venture capital? And
a little bit, yeah. I had a
Austin
notion that I
Ventures?
wanted to be in it, and I talked to a couple people. There wasn't things like this going on, or not that I had any exposure to. So that's obviously different now, and obviously the population's way different, and the high rises are way different.
The skyline has changed a lot since I've been here too. And your path here, you went to University of Florida, you spent some time on Wall Street, and then you pretty quickly headed out to Silicon Valley, and became a venture capitalist. Is that kind of like the typical VC path?
I don't think there is a typical VC path. So there are a handful of people that came. I was a sell-side analyst on Wall Street coming out of Texas, and there's a handful, Mary Meeker, Danny Reimer, myself, Ben Rosen years ago, that did that. But those are like the only four. And, you know, Moritz was famously a journalist, and Dor was a salesperson. And so there's been people from all different types of backgrounds. And it's really diverse, like the set of the prior skills prior to going into the business.
Yeah. So, you just to put everyone's perspective of why you're here. So why are you spending so much time in Austin? Are you officially moved to Austin?
I have officially moved back
You
to
would declare
Austin
it as your
from
home?
way back. Yeah, a couple of years now, actually.
Okay.
So my wife grew up in Texas.
Wikipedia needs to be updated, by the way.
Okay,
We'll work on
I'll
that.
make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Or so it's probably easier for someone else. to
Yeah,
do.
exactly, right.
He's on it. Yeah, my wife grew up in Texas, and I grew up in Texas, and all our families here. And so when we empty nested, and one of my sons is here in the front row, we moved here from there.
Yeah, I think that's a really common story. A lot of people move here because they had family here,
Yeah,
because they're going back to family here.
yeah.
It's. I don't want to spend too much time.
The
on this.
weather's a lot better in Northern California.
It
by the
is.
way.
I know. It's a lot of trade-offs and allergies and other things. But I'm curious. Someone said this to me once, and I'm curious if this resonates with you at all. It did with me. They said, one of the things about Austin versus Silicon Valley is that very few people move to Silicon Valley thinking, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in Silicon Valley. Like they go there kind of like moving there to go dominate and take over the world, and then they're going to go back to where they grew up or off to some beach somewhere or like somewhere else.
Yeah.
Whereas like people moving to Austin, like when you just moved here, like you moved here like, I'm just going to make some assumptions, but like forever.
Right.
Like this was is this the last stop? I don't know. Like, like most people coming here, like they're like not thinking like it's a stop on the way to somewhere else. They're
Right.
thinking like, I'm going to build my family here. I'm going to build my company here. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, I mean, the other way that it's obvious that Northern California is quite transient is when you meet someone that was born there, it's actually unusual. Like, oh, really? Like it's maybe 5% of the people you meet. So
Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of people come in. The flip side, and something that I think there's work to be done in Austin, is people that are super ambitious about wanting to start a company or wanting to be in the mix go there, and so
It's a magnet.
and one ironic challenge is Austin is so much damn fun that you get people that make the decision to come here for that reason, which one could argue disqualifies them from being ambitious.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, Miami. Like, how do they even try?
Right.
Right.
Well, and there's that. That's another funny thing that won't do well in an HR test, but like, Seattle does well, and starting in October, it's dark until like April, right? And so people are working.
Yeah, I went to school in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was, it's a work town too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a really interesting dynamic there because I've heard you say before, and I've heard many others that I really respect say, hey, Silicon Valley, like Hollywood draws the movie stars, and New York draws the finance people. Silicon Valley draws
Nashville and singer-songwriter.
the best talent in the world, right? And if you really want to do the biggest, best things, you need to go there. And at the same time, obviously, we're seeing so much massive growth here in Texas and in Austin, and not just in Austin, but all over Texas. And what that seems to be driven by is exactly the quality of life. People want to live here, and you kind of like, and more so when people can live anywhere. That's kind of driving where companies need to be, where other things need to be. I don't think it's some like obvious answer or anything, but I just think that's kind of like a balance that's weighing
There's
out.
another thing that a lot of people probably wouldn't be willing to talk about, but I will.
I like that.
Yeah, which is the entitlement of the average worker in Northern California has become nearly intolerant. And I was just at an event.
What does that mean? What's their entitlement? What they think they're worth?
Everything from pay to how often they have to work to whether they have to come into the office to how many different flavors of granola they need at the snack tray. The whole thing. And, this weekend I was at an event that a investment bank put on. And first of all, I found out 2 companies have moved a ton of employees here, which I didn't even know, Cloudflare and Atlassian. And Scott and I flew back together at the same time. I didn't even know he was coming. He was coming here. Scott, the founder of Atlassian. And Roku has moved a ton of
They're
stuff
all here, yep.
And so that's awesome, 'cause you
Cloudflare,
got
the
Tesla.
newest. The others have been here a little while, but they've been growing.
And when I talk to them and other CEOs, they say Silicon Valley is a great place to start a company and a horrible place to scale a company. And so they're all looking for other communities to move teams to. Now, historically, the Apples and Facebooks of the world have put customer support here, which doesn't create new startups. You
Right.
need
It was Apple's biggest site, but it was not where all the engineers
you
were.
you need product people, right? And so I'll be on the lookout. But if Cloudflare or if they're starting to put product people here, that'll be fantastic for the ecosystem.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And obviously Elon's stuff is great. I mean, it looks like there's real momentum.
I'd add consumer marketing too, like the real
Yes.
growth marketing, consumer marketing. We've got some, but like more on the B2B SaaS side than the real consumer side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to market. I will tell you, like, we saw a bunch of pitches. I have found go to market to be the number one, like a really cogent and differentiated go to market strategy is what separates most companies.
Yeah.
And most ideas other people have.
Yeah, I mean, certainly some of the advice I often find myself giving to technical founders is, and coming from Carnegie Mellon, I met a lot of them there as well, in particular, where they've got some really cool thing, and it's like, hey, like, you kind of need to have something that feels just as cool about how you're going to go sell it, how you're going to go take it to market. Like, what's just as clever about how you're going to go kill the market with this thing as whatever you invented or what you
100%.
did, right?
100%.
That really separates it. All right, so to many people's chagrin, probably in this room right now, who are probably really hopeful, you are not making new investments, are you?
I am. Well, I'll say 2 things about that. So, as a general partner at Benchmark Capital, I have stopped making new investments.
So you're not making investments for Benchmark anymore.
Right. That was a couple years ago. I also don't aspire to be a institutional backed venture capitalist anymore.
Bill Wood kind of went through that transition. Bill.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna launch a new fund and keep practicing venture capital. I've made a handful of angel investments, and I don't know where that journey's gonna go.
Got it. Okay.
But
I was gonna
I'll
ask.
listen.
You
I'll
just-
listen.
All right, you just opened the door. I was
I'll
trying
listen.
to
but-
give you some wiggle room, but
I'm not looking. I'm also, like my friend Tony Fidel says, he's made, I don't know, like 400. I'm not doing that.
yeah. Jim Breyer, man, I love Jim. Jim, he has hustled into. He is in most of the good deals in town. Like
Yeah.
he's worked it. Like
God bless him.
he's in there. He's really active. Okay, so. But how does it work to come out of a VC firm? Like, do you get to just give them 2 weeks notice and you're
I
done
think
one
different
day?
firms are structured different ways. Benchmark Capital had, from its very beginning, an unusual kind of founding story and structure where they all decided to be an equal partnership. And when they then started bringing on new partners, they let them become an equal immediately. And I was, I think, the second new person that they brought on, and it was extremely flattering. I had actually started at another firm where it was hierarchical. So, like, the top partner made 3x what I did on both fees and carry.
I've had to go through those trade-offs in my own firm.
Right, and so all of a sudden, this firm came along and said, "You want to join us?" And it's all equal. And so, at Benchmark, a new person gets, like, they get really ahead of the game at the start. At the end, because it's equal partnership, there's a lot of pressure to say, am I going to go out there and bust my butt every single day? Because if partner X hits the next Instagram, I'm going to take as much as they do. And so I better be in there swinging. And it creates a really nice, natural, I think, incentive for someone to say if they're not ready to hustle anymore to kind of raise their hand. And so all that happens is you're not a GP in the next fund. So I'm still a GP in all the other funds,
Right.
and I still am on 9 boards. So it'll be a slow. It's not like a retirement from, oh, I was CEO at Ford and now I leave the building and I'm not involved anymore.
When I started angel investing, even I did not understand that like, whoa, these are like 10, 15-year commitments,
Yes.
like that you're really getting into, especially when you're really early angel investing.
Well,
right?
and with the reset we've had in the startup market, those windows have gone out.
Yeah. It's funny, talk about the reset in the startup market. I'm glad you said that because I didn't put it in my notes and I wanted to, but I actually wanted to give you some credit. You're a little bit of the inspiration for Capital Factory, actually. People ask when Capital Factory was founded in 2009, which was right after the 2008 market correction and crash. Which you're somewhat famous for sending out a note to your portfolio companies, kind of saying, "Hey, watch out, buckle your belts, tighten everything up, prepare for the worst," as all this happened, and because we hadn't seen anything like that in a while, and that was really part of the spirit of when we started Capital Factory, is we were saying, "Hey, this is a great time to be, if you have money, to be angel investing, because there's a lot less competition for the deals and for talent and for space and for for everything else, and a lot of great things would get made." So that was 2009, and it was that letter was definitely a big influence on it then. I had do you know Josh Silverman by any chance?
Yes.
He's a good friend of mine. We had him here a few weeks ago, and I asked him
That's cool.
to compare about the early days of Evite. He was the founder of Evite, and then now he's currently the CEO of Etsy, and he's also the CEO of Skype. He's kind of like seen so much through all that.
It's fantastic.
And I was like, what's it like now versus then? And he said, in a slightly different way to what you said about Silicon Valley, he said, well, back then it was easy to raise money and hard to run a company because there was so much competition and everyone else had so much money. Now it's hard to raise money, but it's a lot easier to run a company. If you've got money, if you've got a company, you've got a lot more things going in your favor.
By the way, that's fantastic. You guys had a chance to spend time with him. There are very few big success stories of a new CEO coming into a consumer internet company and kind of reinvigorating it and excelling. And the Etsy story is fantastic.
Well, he's a special
Yeah.
one. He was here for ACL about 2 weekends ago too. He was back. He's awesome. All right, so let's go back to Benchmark. This is certainly a literally personal question for me. I'm running a small VC fund. We are not one of the best VC funds in the world. I wish we were, but we're tiny and we've haven't raised that much money, and we're still figuring. Our model's very different. We're still figuring it out. What makes Benchmark one of the best VC firms in the world?
Well,
Why? I listed that list of companies, and it was not the whole list. It's just the easy ones everybody uses every day. But Uber, OpenTable, Grubhub, Nextdoor, Zillow. This is just him.
Those were the ones I worked.
I know it's just him. That's not even the firm. This is not some. This is not roulette.
Twitter, Snap, Instagram.
Yeah, right. This is.
Yeah.
So why are you guys one of the best in the
I go
world?
back to the founding principle of the equal partnership is really powerful, and it allows us to go recruit the next best general partner we possibly can. I'd say 60% of the time we've stolen someone from another firm, so you can kind of see who's up and coming, and because we're going to give them an equal seat at the table, we generally win that competition. Even if the other firm decides, oh, now we'll do it for you, it's not the same.
You came that way from the beginning. Yeah.
Right. It looks like, oh, well, now you want to, it just doesn't have the same impact. So I think just getting incredible people. When I talk to LPs, these are the people that invest in venture funds. They have one of the hardest jobs in the world, but well, that's probably not true. They have a difficult challenge.
Not quite.
They have a difficult challenge in that the window in which you would evaluate a venture firm's probably 20 years. It's I don't know, even and so a lot of them focus on partner transition and whether the institution is doing something that drives success versus just some individual.
Yeah.
And I'd say one of the things Benchmark that I'm most proud of, and that I think Benchmark has proven, is like our Fund 7, which was incredible and had none of the founding partners in it. And so you had fully transitioned and kept the magic. So I think a lot about the equal partnership. We've decided to focus. I mentioned focus to 2 or 3 of the people that pitched. We only do early stage. We're about 80% A, about 20% B. We never do seed. We never invest without taking a board seat. We take the role of stewardship on the board very seriously. That's a pretty narrow window compared to most venture firms, right, in terms of what we do. And there's always a distraction. We could have easily raised growth funds and pandemic funds and crypto funds, but we didn't, And we think that by being focused, we're maximizing the percentage of time we're out there banging on doors looking for the next opportunity.
So good incentive structures, like I buy that.
Yeah.
That resonates with me. But somehow, like, you're able to pick the very best ones, the winners. What's the secret sauce to that?
Yeah, by the way, it's not just picking, you have to close, as you
Right.
probably know. Like that dance is a big part of it. Like you may want to invest and not have the opportunity. So I would say structure and focus. I would put 1 and 2. If I was forced to think about something else, we have a belief in something we would probably call investor judgment that we think is really important. If we were to all try and write down the definition of what that is, I'm not sure we'd get there. But when we're interviewing like a GP candidate that doesn't have it, it's very obvious to us. And I guess my definition of it would be someone who studies as much investment success as they possibly can. So you've read most of Buffett, Peter Lynch, like you understand, I go back to Porter's 5 Forces constantly. Like, this is just seminal bedrock type stuff that's going to allow somebody to succeed or not. And then you have to be aware of technology disruption, and then the way those two things intersect. So, and we heard some of that today, but okay, so everyone's going to go do AI, but where's that going to change? What industries are going to change the most? Like, where are you going to be able to insert yourself? What are the incumbents doing? Buyer power is one that early stage founders miss all the time, especially at universities.
Buyer power.
Buyer power. So they
who's the
think
buyer?
they're going to build a startup in a highly consolidated industry where there's only 4 buyers. It's almost impossible, And I see that constantly. So anyway, that word is something we talk about a lot. We spend a lot of time, tilting against, spend a lot of time thinking about.
Well, something about it obviously works. From your perspective, you're at the top looking down, going like, we get the best of the best. We get the best deals applying to us. We seem to have pretty good judgment. We're picking these great deals. Why should anybody else even try? Is there any point to the ones that aren't going to be the 1% of the 1% of the very best
venture?
companies? Yeah.
Oh, well, look, I mean, for the 25 years I've been in the business, it's done nothing but get more competitive. Like when I started, actually 10 years before I started, there were 5 venture capital firms and they shared every deal and they had immense market power over the entrepreneur. Today, there's thousands and thousands of venture firms. And the founders have way more power in that
And
dynamic.
actually today there's lists of them on the internet.
And that's
that's pretty good.
The founders have all, I'm sure that it's on some Reddit group or whatever, but they figured out how to game the venture capital community. And so you constantly see, at least once a month, someone will come in and pitch. And accidentally leave the name of another venture firm on the slide,
Right.
and then, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, like, to change that. It's just, oh yeah, sure, you know. And so yeah, the games, no, it's highly competitive, and another thing I would say is, it's easy to out hustle an old VC. Like, it's super easy to out hustle an old VC.
VCs get pretty comfortable.
Yeah, they get multiple homes. They start vacationing. They grow up, you know, and yeah, you can outrun an old VC. And you'd be surprised where if you go focus as a early young venture capitalist in an area and spend like 90% of your time like learning. Like, let's skip AI because everyone's talking about it. Let's just talk like gaming, right? Like there's not. Well, I had a partner, Mitch Lasky, who almost focused 100% in gaming, but like there aren't many VCs that know the gaming market cold. And if you show up and spend 100% of your time go to all the conferences, know every title, play every title. If you're in a meeting with a founder who is doing a gaming startup, you two are gonna get along so differently than you understand what I'm saying?
Speak the language.
Yeah, and you know everything about it, and so I think you can actually break into the venture business, you know,
Yeah.
through overt hustle and focus.
A different form of focus. You know, that resonates with me so much. When my first business that I started in my dorm room at CMU was one of the first email marketing companies, like a MailChimp or Constant Contact.
Mm-hmm.
And I bootstrapped that one. I sold it for $12 million instead of $12 billion, but it was just like MailChimp other than that. Just through that whole process, well, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry, not where that one. We'll come back to that one in a second. So back to my question about the top. You know, is there any hope? The 1% of the 1% of the 1%. We've got all these students here, and you answered from the VC perspective, and like, yeah, it's worthwhile to be. You know, there's still lots of other VCs. That reminds me of my thought on another part. But from the student's perspective, you know, if they aren't going to be the next Uber, is it worth them going and doing it?
So it's a great question, and I have like 3 different answers to this question that I think are relevant. It is a hard thing to do to go be a founder, be an entrepreneur, and start a business, and it's so glorified, you know. I don't know if it's glorified through Shark Tank or glorified through all of the podcasts, you know, 20 VC or How I Built This. Like, you know, you're going to go listen to Toby from Shopify, right?
Yeah.
Who's fantastic. Or you're going to listen to Zuck, or you're going to listen. And you're going to act as if ingesting that's going to impact what you're going to go do with this little startup. And I worry at times that we've created so much excitement about the possible that people don't realize what they're getting into, because it can be really hard.
Yeah.
And most of them don't work.
Yeah.
And I tell you, like, no one writes the book about raising money and getting a few customers and not being able to raise the next round and not being able to meet payroll or letting your team go. And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to depress anybody, but you asked a question.
But the fun parts are actually like really short. Then it's like right back to like, okay, great, we closed this big deal. Now you got to go do this.
Yeah.
Like, right, you know. And
Yeah,
like,
that's not. I mean, I think Toby's fantastic. I think you can learn from these people, so I don't want to leave you with the wrong impression. But it's hard. Another thing I would say is, if you want to make your first $12 million, you're way better off bootstrapping and selling the company. A lot of companies want to buy companies in a sweet spot between 5 million and 80 million. And the minute, especially in name brand venture firms involved, that exit's off the table. It doesn't work for them. And you're probably going to raise a B and C, and now you need a $500 million exit to put the same amount of money in your pocket that a $30 million exit would have done.
Yeah.
And so I do think people over-glorify taking venture capital, and it's worth understanding whether your opportunity's big enough to need venture capital and then to be standalone, or whether it might be the kind of thing where you can bootstrap and sell and do very well for yourself and then go do another one.
Right.
You know, and I think enough people don't do that, you know.
Well, that was very much my story, and it reminds me of my brain fart from before. But you were talking about focus, and I said my first company was an email company, and so you know I'm a community builder, kind of. Even though I have a computer science degree, I end up doing all guerrilla marketing as well all the time too. And so I'm like on all the at the time the bulletin boards and the news groups and other places talking to all the other people doing email stuff, and I kind of became the email guy. And then I started as soon as I could. I started angel investing in every other email startup I could find. The one I actually got invited to and missed was Superhuman. All right, sorry, but hey.
Jury's still out.
Yeah, but yeah, right. But that ended up looked pretty good. But I was totally the email guy, and that's how I got started as an investor.
Yeah.
Is I just was like the only, I literally was like the only email angel investor in the world. It's not like there were like a bunch of them or like anybody trying to compete with me, and so. And honestly, it wasn't a great thesis. Like, there were not, email's really hard. Like, there were not a lot of great email companies that came out of it, right? But it gave me that focus. It gave me that place to get started. Then I started investing in Austin. And then I was the Austin guy. And 15 years ago, that wasn't nearly that was that cool. Like there wasn't that big to be a deal to be the Austin guy, but it appreciated. It got cooler over time, and now it feels good to be the Austin guy. But I definitely got it through that same kind of focus. That was how I was able to differentiate us and feel like we could add some value. And if you were an email person, I knew all the protocols. I knew what you were talking about. I knew all the people. I knew some people at Yahoo. I knew some people at Hotmail or whatever, right? And now if you're in Texas, okay, we got you. We know somebody. We can plug you in.
The third thing I would say, which is going to be a repeat of something I said earlier, is I think unless you've built, well, this would even apply there. So I think you need to have a knowledgeable, differentiated go-to-market strategy with your company, and because you said well, you're not going to be Zuck, you're not gonna, I have rarely heard of an idea where there's not another entrepreneur in some other city that's got the same idea.
Yeah.
So it's a race to who's going to get big with the idea. You're not, I see these people, oh, I got a patent on this. Who cares? It's
in
not
our world, that doesn't matter much.
Yeah. So anyway, those would be the three pieces of feedback that I'd have. If you're going to do it, it's going to be hard. By the way, one of my favorite books of all time is a book called Startup by Jerry Kaplan, which is a failure story. Because all you read are these success stories. And he raised money from all the best venture firms. He hired all the best employees. This was the pre-iPad market, and it didn't work. There's a great movie. Actually, there's a great movie about a competitor. That company was called Go. A competitor was General Magic.
Oh, that's a great movie.
And the movie, it's free on the internet. I highly encourage you to go watch because it'll teach you about the what happens when you don't focus. But both those companies, Go and General Magic, ended up launching tons of entrepreneurs that were wildly successful post those companies. But if it's fun I think it's useful to see a failure story in addition to a success story.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I have a couple more questions, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for the students as well. But I want to now zone in on your most recent talk at the All In Summit, which we asked everyone to watch before class today. And in that, if I had to put a theme to it all, it'd be around regulatory capture, around this idea of that as industries get more mature and get bigger, that laws get introduced to regulate them, but the laws actually generally get written by the lobbyists who are hired by the big companies. And so basically, it really often stifles startups and new innovation because the big companies end up writing all the laws. And this is certainly something I've heard of and seen before. But we're sitting here, as I mentioned to you when you came in, on this red, white, and blue floor with the Army and the Air Force and a whole bunch of other groups around us here. And we're doing a whole bunch of work with the government. And in a lot of ways, they're trying to get around regulatory capture. They're going like, hey, we normally only buy stuff from these really big companies that only sell stuff to the government. We want to buy stuff directly from startups, directly from small businesses, things like that. But even within that structure, it's like a microcosm of the same thing happening, again, in different ways, right? And also in your talk, you talked about, these other industries where there's so much more regulation. And I'm sure you remember Steve Case a few years ago had his book, The Third Wave, I think it was Third or Fourth Wave, but about kind of like the next wave of the internet being all these regulated industries, right? So I'm just curious if you have any insights for what we're trying to navigate here, because actually hundreds of millions of dollars have flown to the companies here over the past couple of years through these things. Like, it's really helping them get funding.
Well, I haven't spent a lot of time backing companies that sell to the government, so I don't want to opine one way or another. Just I don't have the relevant data points. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs that have tilted against the healthcare market, as an example, become very disenfranchised 3, 5, 7 years in when they discover that it's not really a market, that it's this perverted thing where I always said, like, in a startup, there's like one capitalist force of gravity, and in healthcare, there's like 7 forces because it's not a real market. And you can get your head handed to you. I mean, the example I gave of Tropos, where the market just got shut down by Comcast, Verizon, and AT&T passing laws in a bunch of states that just said you can't do it. I'd never seen anything like that before. So I would be careful if you're going into a highly regulated industry that you may not understand all the forces. And I think through interviewing with mentors and peers and stuff, you can learn and just make sure you're aware of what you're getting yourself into, because it can be very, very difficult.
Great. Well, I've got a few more maybe closing questions I'll come back to, but I want to.
By the way, since you brought up the talk, since I gave that talk, although I mentioned this briefly on the All In stage, I've become even more aware. I've never seen this in my entire career, but the young, I'll call them the young incumbents in AI, have built, there's a Politico article, I could look up the name of it, it's a must read. They have organized in a way I've never seen before, and they're trying to pull up the ladder in AI 3 years in. Like, these companies are 3 years old. They have super PACs. They are putting staffers on just in the offices of the different congressmen. They want to outlaw open source AI models, which scares the living shit out of me, like that's happening, because I think open source is so important to the entrepreneurial community.
John Carmack was just talking about that.
Yes, Carmack's upset about it, Andreessen's upset about it. There's literally a fissure or a faction that's of divide that's happening in Silicon Valley right now, because like Reid Hoffman's defending Anthropic, and Sam and like me and these other guys are on the other side. Like this is scary stuff. Yeah. And now there's this huge war, but I hope it doesn't happen, but they're certainly trying to do it.
Yeah, Carmack said open source is free speech.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able
It's
to.
bigger than that, really. From my point of view, there's this great book by Matt Ridley that I mentioned in the talk called The Rational Optimist, and he goes through the history of time, and he shows that the thing that drives prosperity the most are ideas being traded around in commerce. And the easiest example to think about is, going way back in time, but, I learned how to plant wheat and grow it. If I go to another community that doesn't know that and I tell them and show them, that's just free prosperity lift for everybody. And to me, the thing in the modern world, in the modern technology world, that's most like just telling someone something productive like that is open source.
Yeah.
Like it's really amazing. It's free information, and then everyone can use it. And I would hate to see it go away. I think it'd be horrible for the planet.
Not to get too far out there, but I, on the recommendation of maybe a Naval podcast or something like that, I read this recent David Douche book about reality, which was awesome, and like the fabric of reality, it's called. And he talks about this concept of really all of the sum of human knowledge as almost like a living thing, and how that evolves over time, and how we contribute to that, and how that. And it was really
Yeah,
really
like
fascinating.
Wikipedia is a great example.
Yeah.
Like I was just talking to my son about, MIT open source their textbooks, and why do textbooks exist actually? Shouldn't there be a Wikipedia-like thing, like a dynamics? There should just be one page, and all the dynamics professors in the world should contribute, and it should evolve, and that information should be broadly available to everybody. And that's the spirit of open source to me, and that will help the world be more prosperous for sure.
Yeah, I love it. All right, I'm going to have a couple questions to close, but let's open it up to some of the students to see what some of your questions are. So we'll start up here in the front.
All right.
Oh, sorry, Nick. I'm going to stop. Nick, from now on, you're going to get to pick.
Hi, so I was wondering, what are your thoughts on Y Combinator's model, and you can only be a venture capitalist partner if you're a founder, and then you turn into a VC manager? What are your thoughts on that thesis?
I think are you asking two questions? What do you think about only being a founder, or
Do you need to be a founder to be a VC?
Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, easy. So I have this saying, which is every time a venture capitalist opens their mouth, they're talking to a founder they haven't met yet. They're marketing. And so if you are a former founder and you're a VC, you will make that your pitch, and you will say it over and over again. And if you aren't, then you'll make a different pitch. But as I already told you, and you can go look up, there's a massive variety of backgrounds of venture capitalists. Leave me out of it. John Doerr and Mike Moritz weren't founders, and they're two of the best that have ever walked the planet. And so I don't believe that statement's true. Could it help you with a particular type of founder where you're experienced? Absolutely. And are there great former founders that are good VCs? Absolutely. But it's impossible to declare that that's a fact of how the game works.
Yeah, I think I think another part that you also heard a little bit in Bill's talk before, and makes sense with YC as well, is that a venture capital firm is a partnership. It's a group of people that have to work together, right? And they need to, at some level, have some shared values or shared ways of thinking, right?
Yeah.
And that just might be the right thing for Y Combinator, right? As opposed to it just because it really works for them, right? And it really works for their culture and what they're trying to create and the founders that they want to attract. But it doesn't mean every VC firm.
There's a lot of strategies that VC firms, and there's a lot of successful VC firms that use different strategies. So, and YC's obviously wildly successful at what they do.
So I read this article on TechCrunch by Sarah Leary, one of the co-founders of Nextdoor. But they originally started a company called Fanbase that you invested in, right? And she said how when Fanbase was failing, she wanted to give your investment money back to you. But instead of taking it, you just told them to come up with a new idea in 3 months. So I'm kind of curious, why did you do that? Why didn't you just take the money back?
Okay. I'd probably edit what you said. I don't think I told them to. I think I encouraged it, and it worked. And by the way, you probably know the story that Slack would. I call these like a 180-degree pivot. Like you just stop the current idea, and then you go do another one. Slack was like that. Discord was like that, actually, for those of you that don't know. They were working on a game. The game wasn't working. And Mitch Lasky, my partner, who I mentioned earlier, who was probably one of the best gaming VCs of all time, he sat down with them and said, let's talk about other ideas, and it came to that place. I will tell you that, like, the number of people, and in the case of Nirav and Sarah, the number of people that know what it takes to make a consumer internet company successful is tiny. Like, to really understand viral growth and network effects and the way you have to make this stuff happen. And so there was still, I think, they had raised a B, so I think we still had like $6 million at the time. And there wasn't any reason to give up. Like, there were 7 incredible people, and we had meetings once a week. And like you had just a little while ago, they would go through 5 ideas a week. And one of the 7 had talked to someone who was running a what was it called? These neighborhood communities. Oh God, I can't think of the name. There was like a
Neighborhood association.
And he asked that guy if he would build a tool for the neighborhood association. And the minute I heard it, I was like, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. Like, that's gonna, and then we built 1, and then we built 3, and then it worked.
Great question.
Hi, can you mention again, like, go in more detail what you mentioned, like the different gravity barriers in the healthcare field?
Just different what?
I think you said like different gravity points.
Oh,
Like some
sure.
of the reasons why healthcare is hard, for example.
Yeah, consumers don't make decisions with knowledge of the price. Like, that's just, if you study investing and study businesses, like, you always assume the customer is knowledgeable of the price and is making a decision with price. Like that's just not true in that market. The corporation, the employer, shouldn't even be in the equation. So you have this company playing a role in the market that isn't an expert. Like if you run a 10,000 employee company, you're not a healthcare expert, but you're in the healthcare market, and that buyer that lives in that company isn't one of the top 10 executives at the company. So it's just a bizarre, like perverted reality in the whole market. The insurance carrier, everyone thinks an insurance carrier. I've seen 50 startup pitches that think that an insurance carrier wants to lower cost. They're making money cost plus. They want to raise how much they spend. Like it's all backwards. Like it's a hall of mirrors. There's probably 10 more. Like, I'll just spare everybody.
Yeah. And it's not just healthcare, but there are certain industries, regulated industries, big complex industries that are going to bring those things. Certainly working with the government.
Oh, here's another one.
Like that.
Like, you would have no reason to know this. Most hospital systems are 2 companies, not 1. There's an operating company that runs the building and the x-ray machine and all this, and then there's a doctor's collective. So you have this idea that's going to help doctors, but you have to sell it to this other thing. Like it's impossible. The whole thing's so messed up. I hope we can fix it.
And that is regulatory capture. I think. Did you have one in the middle? Question?
Oh, yeah.
Nick, will bring it over.
Hello. I don't know if it's working. Oh, there we go. Okay, I was just gonna say, I interned for a VC firm that was smaller that like invested in companies with health or environmental impact, and they struggled between like financial growth and wanting to invest in companies that like beneficially contributed to society. So I was just wondering, like, as a VC, what your stance is on that. Like, how much weight does like the ethics of the company have, and how much you think they're going to help society in comparison to like the financial returns?
So I'm going to give you a terse, quick answer, and then a more thoughtful, longer answer. So the terse answer would be, it is so goddamn hard for a startup to be successful in general. Giving it two objective functions is going to cut the possibility in half at best. So I don't have a secondary objective function. I'm very interested in whether the company's going to be successful or not. Full stop. Now, my longer, more thoughtful answer is, I probably, more than most, although I'm certain Mark Andreessen's in this camp because of his manifesto he posted this morning, that technology and innovation is the key driver of prosperity lift around this globe. And it always has been, and it always will be. So pursuing technological innovation, driving open source forward, all these things, I believe, has bigger impact on the quality of living and the standard of living and general prosperity. The individual human that's probably lifted more people out of prosperity than any on the planet, and I tested this with ChatGPT, I was pleased it got the right answer, is Deng Xiaoping, who brought capitalism back to China and brought 500 million people out of poverty. So that's my long answer. Like, I think the pursuit is a altruistic one, like pursuing successful companies.
Yeah, and I really agree with that as well. I think there have been some limited examples of people coming up with some really clever ideas that did some really great impact work and had some real good dual impact in that way. But the best things just have the impact. Just the fact of them existing is they're actually just making all of our lives better or more efficient or changing it, and it's inherent in what they do.
I'd mentioned some of the issues in Silicon Valley. One of them I would tell you is, and I think the Twitter example's gotten a lot of press on this, but some of the companies invested so much energy and culture and then they weren't successful. So it doesn't matter. Like, if I create this really cool culture that achieves all these other things, but then the company goes out of business, what have I done? Like, in fact, I may have hurt the cause because I've said, I'm going to run my company this way and meet all these other objectives, and then the company fails. People go, well, maybe that's because you ran the company that way, and you've hurt the cause. So it's like you got to be careful with these things.
Other student questions? Because we have a bunch.
In 2016, you were on the board of Uber when they received I think the biggest check of all time from the Saudi Public Investment Fund. What was your initial reaction, and how do you think that helped position the company to grow in the Middle East?
How do you think it
helped position them to grow in the Middle East?
In the Middle East, that's a difficult question. It's ironic you asked me that question because I was just telling my son that 2 people I know are on a plane to Saudi Arabia right now for the investor conference that they're kicking off, which, and obviously there have been more controversial ones right after Khashoggi, and this gets into a bunch of questions. So I have never in my life, and I doubt I will again, been in a position where the capital wars were so ridiculous as happened between Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, and like companies raising billions and billions of dollars in the private market and attacking each other. When we were going through it, I said to myself, I had a ton of anxiety, and I said to myself, well, who would I call? And I could get Jack Welch on the phone or whoever, like great business operator. They'd never seen that pitch. Like, no one had ever seen that. So I would also tell you, and I don't know if your question was more about the Saudi money or just the money. Did you have a? Yeah, just the money. Okay, so good. I really don't want to talk about the other part, but it was so, like, you raise a ton of money you overfund a startup and they're going to be worse off for it. Like, it's just a fact of life, and I've seen it over and over again. You'll do sloppy stuff. You know, every great creator and innovator, and Steve Jobs certainly said this, you know, constraints drive creativity, constraints drive innovation, constraints make you better. And having unlimited access to capital creates sloppy stuff. We lost $1 billion in leasing, and it just wasn't run well. And we wouldn't have ever launched that if we didn't have all that money. At the same time, we had this fight with Lyft and others raising all this money, and you kind of had to play the game on the field. So I had mixed feelings about it. Is what I would say, but I did approve it for what it's worth.
Awesome.
Hello. This is also on the topic of Uber. So in 2017, Benchmark filed a lawsuit against Travis.
Like reporters.
Go ahead.
So Benchmark filed a lawsuit against Travis Kalanick due to expanding the board by withholding information, and then also several other accusations. So I was just curious to know how often you guys have to deal with like bad actors in startups that you guys fund.
I think that was a remarkably unique situation. The lawsuit actually was just a tactic, really, that had come once the disagreement kind of had gone public, and there was he had agreed to something in the separation agreement that he was now not. He was backing off of, and that was just a tactic to try and get him to do what he had said he already would do. So it wasn't like that part wasn't the bigger issue was a decision to take an opposition role relative to a founder that you backed, and that was a very difficult decision. One we knew our competitors would hold against us later, which they have done, and one that I would hope you don't have. I mean, I would say how often, I mean, it's not the only example of a venture firm ending up opposed to a founding group. There's this company in Miami where the founders took all the money in secondary and quit coming to work. I forget the name of it. I could look it up. So they're in a similar situation. It's rare in a success situation. And by the way, we were working at the time with 4 other investors, so it wasn't just us. It was Chris Sacca and 3 others. And so anyway, but what was unusual was the decay of the brand and the market position and the legal threats against the company were like none I'd ever seen before. So we had 5 or 6 state attorney generals that had filed action against us. The City of London was threatening to kick us out. They had this whole investigation, the Holder investigation, because of the blog post that had been written. And we were losing market share fast. And we had data that showed that. And our fear was that there was going to be regime change brought about by an external factor within the next 12 months. But if we wait, how much has the asset deteriorated even further if we don't take action? And we sat around the room and debated that for hours and hours and hours, and decided we had to come up with. And as I mentioned, with 4 other investment firms, it wasn't just us. It gets played that way on television, I guess, but there were 4 others. It was a hard decision. And I've also said this publicly, and I'll say it again. If we had done perfect venture capital work, we never get to that point. Like the problem was that, and by the way, I think the money played a role in this, actually, because that question had come up. Like that particular round with the Saudis, they gave him 3 other board seats, and he was able to convince them to put that in the term sheet, and so that created this kind of power that then can lead to decisions that aren't perfect. And so anyway, it's an interesting, unique situation. I hope no one goes through it on either side.
Yeah, I'll tell you, from Capital Factory's perspective, especially as we're not a lead investor, we're generally a follow-on investor, so we're not often put in a position of having to make those decisions, but often get asked to, whether what our vote is alongside things. And our default is always to go with the founders, but we've been involved in hundreds of companies, and there are sometimes where just, unfortunately, you have to do what seems to be best for everybody involved, and get to that point.
The other issue in this particular case was with the company already valued, I think, at over $50 billion, there were a number of stakeholders that had a lot at stake, including our limited partners. This position represented an outsized portion of their returns, foundations, endowments, and many of these LPs actually get bonused on paper marks, so they had already banked it, right? And now the numbers were going in the opposite direction, and the employee base, the driver community, there's a lot of people at stake. And the one story that I don't think has been told as well as it should is just how quickly Dara put out all those fires. He's really a savvy kind of political type operator, and he put London he took all the state attorney generals went away, and in the past, I'd say 2 years, I think the brand has finally separated itself from the problems we were in. I mean, there was a good 5-year period where most females I knew in Silicon Valley would not get in an Uber, but I think that time has passed.
How much do you think AI will be a commodity technology in and of itself, and will it be a differentiator for evaluations in 5 years versus now?
I'm not sure I understand the second part of the question.
Like for companies, do you think it will affect their evaluations?
Oh, thank you. So I think the first question is so interesting, and I don't think we know the answer yet. But I've talked, and my own journey of trying to go deep on AI has been, over the past 6 weeks, I've probably read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages and watched tons of interviews. There is a possibility you're right. And the way Stephen Wolfram believes that this thing is mostly just really good at text. And a lot of what people imagine it to be are extrapolations that aren't accurate, at least relative to what's possible today. And if that's right, I think these open source models could collide or catch up. And there's data that suggests the Mistral data from 2 or 3 weeks ago is pretty amazing. And we have test points now around SAT test or the LSAT or whatever, and we can see the pace, and it will be super interesting. I wonder at times, so some other person who studies it all the time said there's an argument called a dome effect where they think we're racing up against an asymptote, which is not the general perception, by the way. I'm curious what made you ask the question, because I don't think anyone's asking that question, but I think it's super provocative. It's going to be fun to watch. I don't know. I'd give it a possibility. I'd give it a good 40-50% possibility that you're right, and it will be super interesting if that's true, because of all the billions of dollars that have been pushed into LLMs. If all of a sudden it's just kind of that would be pretty radical. And this regulatory fight or attempt at outlawing open source is super relevant to your question.
So I had on my list of other questions. This kind of hits on one of them, and so just kind of lightning round, real quick. What do you think about Bitcoin? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
I would say, especially after everything we've been through, it would be a thumbs up right now, because
It's not going away.
Yeah, and the fact that the rest of crypto kind of flamed out is actually super positive for Bitcoin.
Yeah, right. So related, what do you think about NFTs? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Down.
Down. It's not coming back.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no.
Uh,
It was a flame
blockchain's
out,
kind
right?
of silly anyway.
So,
Like-
so you're like one of the most experienced people in the world at this. Like, how do we know if LLMs? Why do you think LLMs are Bitcoin, not blockchain, or not NFTs?
Well, I just made an argument that might be commoditized.
Yeah, it
but-
might be right. I know,
but-
but deep down, I don't think that's what you think is
Oh,
going to happen.
yeah, no. Well, I said something earlier. Like, I really think it's a UI innovation, and a lot of big breakthrough moments in tech investing have been around UI. I mean, the mobile phones.
That
For
was
all the
huge.
new app companies that popped up on it, it's kind of an infrastructure system and UI, change. in
Yeah, well,
how-
phase
and-
one was get it on the web page, right, on the internet.
Well,
Phase two is get it on,
even before that was client server.
or something. Yeah,
Before that was just the PC.
Then it's getting it on the phone.
Yeah.
But this is now changing it from apps to I just talk to it.
Yeah, and people don't talk about that part as much.
When you talk about the UI change,
Yeah, the UI
it's the
part.
conversational.
I think that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Like, and I think we're just starting to see what's possible. on that front.
Are you a Star Trek fan? Do you watch Star Trek?
No, I'm sorry.
No. Oh man, we have a whole Star Wars floor here, but I'm shocked at I think they were so prophetic in their projections of everything in their computer interface is conversational AI. Like you look at how they interact with computers in the future, it's all conversational AI. It's completely ChatGPT.
In two of the pitches, I mentioned this memory thing. So it's, when I used ChatGPT for a week, I was like, oh shit, this is going to change my life. And I started trying to tell it things. And it only lasts for the session.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Like, no, I need you to be here for me forever.
Right.
And I literally started texting Sam Altman and others. I'm like, what's going on? And I didn't know as much as I know now, but it's based on the way they work. There's a tuning and a training phase, and then there's a usage phase, and the notion of memory is conflating those two things because you would need to be retuning or retraining constantly on this stuff you put in, which is impossible for millions of users against the one thing.
Right.
And so that's why I mentioned it. It's easy to think, oh well, it'll just do these things, but the Anthropic and someone had talked to Mustafa about the same thing at Inflection, like this. And when I DM'd Sam about this, I don't know, 6 months ago, he said, yeah, we're working on it. So there is a.
Well, they have the feature now of the kind of like a pre-prompt. You can pre-fill of
you-
before every one of my prompts, give it this first.
Right, you could do
like-
that. You could imagine doing that, but how far are you going to get with that?
Yeah. That's where they are now. They've recently introduced that.
Yeah, but that won't get you all the way
No,
to where
and
we're
most
talking
people
about.
won't. And most people won't take the time to go do it.
And it doesn't mean someone can't go do this, but I think there is so the LLMs we are excited about today really are, and this is super ironic about the open source argument and everything, it all came about because of this attention idea that came out of DeepMind at Google that allowed this kind of breakthrough. And this if someone can figure out this other thing, this memory thing, I think you're going to see some amazing stuff.
Well, I'm also super excited about it. I feel so fortunate to get your perspective on it. We've also got to spend some time with John Carmack. We're investors in Keen.
Cool.
And Stephen
He's
Wolf.
very worried about this open source thing.
Oh yeah. And Stephen Wolfram is a regular here for South by. We love Stephen, and he's always got some great insights into it. So those are all some of my people I really look up to for it too. All right, we have time for a couple more questions. I know we got some. I see some hands up in the front, Nick. Here, Nick.
Awesome. Thanks for your time today. So I'm a journalism student, and I remember you're talking about the regulatory capture issue. So I'm wondering, how effective have journalists been, in your perspective, in holding the companies and lobbyists accountable? And is there anything different that journalists should do?
like kind of exposing or providing transparency to regulatory capture. I don't think very good, actually. There was an article in the speech that I mentioned where this is relative to the rapid antigen test, where the Wall Street Journal wrote a glowing, story about how successful Abbott had been, earning $11 billion in the rapid antigen test market, and it was a completely captured it wasn't a market, it was a mockery of a market. Like it was created because only 2 vendors were allowed to participate in the US market when you had 96 in Germany, and the writer knew nothing about that or never looked. The writer never asked what's the bill of material cost of a rapid antigen test, and why if they did, they'd find out it's like 25 cents and you're selling it for $12. Like in this moment of emergency, why would there be a 98% gross margin product for $11 billion of sales? And the government bought it at this ridiculous price when it's on the shelf in Germany at 1/6 of the price. It's like it's not like they're not even paying attention, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why there hasn't been more. There were some, around the 737 MAX issue, if you remember that. But when they really started peeling back what happened, Boeing had been given the right to self-regulate on a number of initiatives that had led to the failure. So in that case, I did see some. But in general, it's a really sad situation in the U.S. I want to spend more time studying some of the other countries. I think, and I do worry that capitalism and democracy kind of corrupt each other over time, and that it's a form of calcification. It doesn't really get to your journalist point, but I think it's a critical thing that we need to figure out a way to kind of slow down and
Well,
stop.
technology somewhat does it. This gets back to your talk as well, but technology somewhat naturally does this by disrupting, by coming along and making the old thing obsolete. And so suddenly, like, all the postal mail regulation doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, all right,
Fair.
yep, you spent 100 years coming up with all the rules about how to send postal mail, and like it just doesn't matter anymore,
Yeah.
right? And then moves on to the next thing. But and then just I don't know if you read any of what's his names, but all the principles books, Ray Dalio. But
Oh,
he
yeah.
did, he did. I read one of his ones on kind of civilizations, and it was really the kind of like, is the U.S. on the beginning of its decline question, and
I think it's an interesting question. So you go read about. So we're worried about the risk in Taiwan, and we're worried about the fact that 80% of high-end semiconductors are at TSMC in Taiwan, and so we're going to re-onshore. Well, go read about how well things are going in Arizona. They're not going well, and it's very expensive. And even now, TSMC is saying, I doubt we can land anything within 40 or 50% of the cost of there. And you say, why? And oh, well, there's red tape, there's regulation, like you got to get approval for this. Like we're making it more expensive to build that there than in Taiwan. Our workers have higher expectations for things they need than they do in Taiwan, and it's a global marketplace, right? And we don't have a right to tell their workers what you should work with our ethical standards, not with your own. Well, they get to pick their own ethical standards, Another example of that within the country is Elon was in an interview and he asked why he built the Gigafactory here, and he said, oh, we finished the building in the time it would have taken to get the initial approvals in the state of California.
that's why he was in Texas.
Yeah. So that's relevant.
Yeah. Even getting back to being a good investor, as a secondary investor, one of our great advantages is just being able to move fast.
Yeah.
Like, I got to be able to make quick decisions, right? Well, how do you get in deals? You say yes.
Yeah.
For early, like that's not the only way, and you don't want to say yes to everything, but yeah, like it matters to the founders who said yes first, right? And who believed in them and being able to move quickly. All right, we only have time for a couple more questions, and I'm sure that he is going to try to get with his son out of this building at some point, and there will probably be some people trying to ask more questions too. So I'm going to even try to get them out here a little bit early.
By the way, I just thought of something. This Politico article that came out in the past week about OpenAI and others spending PAC money, it was appropriately skeptical of that activity.
Yeah.
So that's an example.
Questions from some of our mentors or investors who've been holding back. Eric or Shaquille?
Shaquille's been on. Thank you. I hope the class is really thankful and lucky to realize how lucky they are to ask questions to you directly. So this is great. I just wanted to cover on the point that you made just now about Anthropic and OpenAI setting up these packs and everything else. Aren't they really doing a proxy battle for Microsoft, Amazon, or the VCs who have put billions of dollars behind them? Right?
Well, I
so
think
they're really not doing it on their own. They're actually copying exactly from the Microsofts, Google, and Amazons.
I think they're potentially all involved. Certainly, just from listening to podcasts and stuff, like the investors are defending the activity and that kind of thing as well. So it's a multifaceted situation.
The question is, how do they fight it? How does others fight that?
I'm involved in some efforts to try by speaking publicly about it as one. But yeah, it's the voices that I think need to be the loudest. Well, there's a very strong argument that if you are so they're using an argument that this stuff's super scary as the reason that they need self-regulation, right? Oh my God, it's really awesome, but it's really scary, and so you should only trust us. But if you look at previous, examples of like, do you trust Google? Like, do you trust Apple? Like, why would the answer be to outlaw open source and then allow a bunch of black box companies? They won't tell you what, like, OpenAI won't tell you what data sets they scanned. Like, that's very transparent in the LLM models. They fix problems with this layer that's after the LLM is run. And so that's why you can jailbreak it like crazy, and it gets jailbroken every day. In fact, like all the young kids know all the hacks. They think it's the funniest thing in the world to get this thing to tell them what it's not supposed to tell them. And so I don't know. That's the war. I don't. Well, obviously Facebook has gotten behind the open source side, and I don't know how. When I read this article, I don't see a ton of Microsoft and Google. They're kind of involved in their own other issues from a regulatory. It seems to be driven by these three well-funded startups, best I can tell.
Awesome. One more.
And some fear-mongering other people who actually thinks this is going to wipe humans off the planet tomorrow, which I'm not in that camp, obviously.
As a VC, I really struggle with the role of government with antitrust, because on one side I see the monopoly behavior and the anti-competitive behavior, but at the same time with the VC model, acquisitions by these big companies are like the lifeblood of a lot of the returns. So I'm curious about your take on that.
Well, you got the worst of both worlds right now, because there's these 3 or 4 or 5 companies that are worth $1 trillion or more, and they're all sitting on their hands because they believe they can't be active in M&A. And so, it's kind of the worst, because they're huge, large incumbents, and so if the government doesn't break them off or stop them, they might tie. Microsoft's basically back to the execution prowess and business model they had 15 years ago, and they're running over Slack and they're running over Zoom, and they're basically tying and bundling again. And so it's a tough question. And as a fan of capitalism, like, needing the government to come in and play referee doesn't feel right. And as someone who doesn't like regulatory capture, how could I? Now, that said, I was at an event last week and Tim Wu spoke, who is a famous academician on this type of topic, and it had been in the Biden administration. And he made a compelling argument that some tactical decisions by the government that weren't regulations so much as like a decree. Like there was a point at which AT&T was told they had to open up all their patents. And he made an argument that that led to these 50 other companies being born. The Microsoft consent decree, where they told them you can't leverage the browser into the internet, that probably gave a lot of, that was probably a big part of Google, Amazon, Yahoo, like all these companies being successful. So it may be that there's a surgical strike to stop someone's forward movement or to break a company in two, at least according to Tim Wu, might then create 1,000 more flowers bloom, which is different from like, let's create a new agency and hang out with you for the next 30 years.
You seem to be somewhat of a moderate in this whole, often extreme libertarian.
Yeah, that's probably right. I will tell you that if I were in antitrust, I would add a new test, which is how big of a bully can you be in a partnership agreement? Because, I can remember times, because I was on all these marketplace companies, almost every one of them got caught by Google and said, hey, let us ingest your metadata and put all your results in our search results, but we're going to stand between you and the customer. We're not going to give you the contact information, and we're going to collect payment, and we're not going to share the credit card. And like that was their proposal. And like, there's no way I'd do that deal. And just the notion that they think they can do that deal says a lot about, their market power.
Yeah. All right, last question for you from me, and then we'll wrap. And it's just not to put you on the spot a little bit, but we have all these students here. They're all thinking about their lives ahead of them. If you could look back, what advice do you have to college students today thinking about the entrepreneurship path and venture capital path?
This is it. You're not putting me on the spot at all, because I have an easy answer. About 4 or 5 years ago on the campus here, I gave a speech called Running Down a Dream. And that would be my answer. Like, go watch this speech. It's on YouTube. And I'm actually working on a book on the same topic. And it's just about how to succeed and thrive in your dream job.
You got to pursue your passion. It's got to be something.
Yeah, and that's the first part. And then I believe that in the modern world, and I have some thoughts in the speech you can go watch, there are techniques. It's easier today than it ever has been to make yourself successful because of the things like LinkedIn and Twitter and your ability to get close to the type of people that can make you helpful is never been easier.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Never been easier. So I have a bit of a playbook for people to follow.
Well, we have a bookstore downstairs.
I have to go finish the book.
I can't wait till that's done.
Then we'll put it
Yeah,
in.
we'll be able to feature that in our bookstore, maybe have you come talk about it again. I want to give you as a gift, one of the military groups that all come through here. If you ever met with a general or anything like that, they have these coins, and
Yes.
I'm fortunate to get a bunch of them. And we have a Capital Factory coin, so I'd love to give you one of ours. It's got the Capital Factory logo on one side and the Texas flag on the moon on the other side. So thank you so much for coming.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you spending your time with us. As Shaquille said, it's really, really special for the students to get to just talk to you one-on-one, and we know you get a lot of invitations to speak. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
That's that TV or what? That's badass, man. I have an old vintage one. It's just like a burgundy face. I'm a big watcher. So I saw that. Are you at UT or what? Not too many young kids wearing the San Francisco Street, man. That's a good one. What's your name? Joey. Nice to meet you, man.